We've all been there. We have the task of leading with tomorrow in mind, but we get so stuck in daily duties that we forget the big picture. What's your secret of keeping focus in your ministry today for tomorrow? Tell us in the comment, and I'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to season 3, Learn Together. Hey, we only got 2 episodes left, and today is one of the last ones. Can't believe it. This journey has been incredible as we're learning from ministry experts that are in the seasoned ministers in various aspects. And today we have 2 incredible women that are leading. One's from Florida, one's from Washington, so it's total opposite. One is seasoned in leading the network of women ministers in our district and network, and one is just starting. So we have some amazing insight that we can glean from that. Hey, we all have this one task of leading this generation for tomorrow. Nobody leads today because nobody leads today without thinking about the next generation, right? You're leading, you're doing whatever you're doing today because God has called you to make disciples of all nations for next generation. But that's easy to talk about it, but it's really hard when it comes to talking about day-to-day work. What does it even mean? What does it even look like? So I have 2 incredible women that I want to introduce to you, and we're going to learn from their ministry network right now. So I don't know if you noticed it, but throughout this journey of season 3, we've had opportunities on purpose to interview some current network of minister district leaders. So we have this network and district in each state, not all 66 states, districts, but we have some women that are doing some incredible work, and we have interviewed them and gave shout outs to their networks or districts. So the first one that I want to introduce to you is a very special friend of mine. We went to school together and finished our doctoral study together and became real champions for each other. And she is a phenomenal pioneering leader, Dr. Deanna Shrodes. Let's welcome her to the table. Hello, Dr. Deanna.
Hi, Dr. Saehee. It's so great to be with you again. I miss being with you in the classroom setting, learning together side by side, in person, live, and also online. It was just a great experience going through that journey with you. I learned so much from you, so I want to thank you for that and let you know how much I miss our times together.
I know, and I can say the same thing about you. I've been following you as a leader prior to our academic journey, but you have been in ministry for so long. So I know you personally, but for those people who don't know you just yet too well or at a personal level, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Thank you. Well, the number one role that I have is daughter of God. I am very grounded in that, knowing that without everything flowing from that, that is the number one role in my life, is to have that close relationship with Jesus daily where everything flows out of that. And after that, well, I am a wife and mom and of 35 years. And so I'm very delighted about that. I also serve as our district women's director, the director of PF Women here in the Peninsular Florida district. And then I began the Stronger Leadership Network 8 years ago, which is our leadership arm. And that has just grown by leaps and bounds. And I'm just so blessed to be able to do all that I'm able to do at this time. I was in pastoral ministry for 27 years before coming into this role as an ordained Assembly of God minister, and working as co-pastor alongside my husband for many years prior to coming into this role. And then as a staff pastor for the first 7 years of our ministry in both music ministry as well as youth ministry. And so after that, going into lead pastoring and then transitioning into this role. So that's my journey and where I'm at this time. And I'm just able to be involved in so many wonderful endeavors, just like you. And so blessed with all the places that God is leading me.
You know what? I just cannot just help but to say, wow, that is some resume right there. But if you don't know Dr. Deanna's story, she has amazing personal testimony. I mean, when you look at her leading the way she's doing, people are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I could never do. But if you know her story personal story that she did not grow up in a Christian home, or she had a lot of trauma in her own journey, but she's used that to empower others. So I just wish that you have an opportunity to meet her in person or get to know her story, because if she can do it, if God can use Dr. Deanna for everything that she's doing today, anybody can be used by God and for his glory. So that is just a little side note, a personal observation of her life. But because I've known you a little bit personally, and what I've really been inspired by you, it's just the way you lead people through your authenticity. As leaders, like everybody feels like you got to be put together. And I think one of the characteristics of a really good leader today, leading next generation, so leading for tomorrow, is authenticity. You have to be authentic. You have to be honest. So kind of that involves showing your dark side or downside of who you are, but you do that so good and so naturally, and which is kind of unheard of, leading at such a high capacity. You want to look put together. So how are you doing that? Number one, why are you doing that? Why do you share so much of your, hard side and painful side? And how do you do it so well?
Well, I want to clarify, first of all, that I did actually grow up in a Christian home. I wasn't born into a Christian home with Christian parents. My life started out very differently, of course, with foster care and adoption and all that. But then I was adopted and raised in a Christian home. But I did go through a lot of trauma in my life. And you're, of course, aware of that. And what I find about sharing my personal story or personal struggles is just simply this. When people get up and they just list all of their qualifications and all the accomplishments, especially when they're getting ready to preach, I don't really see that really brings people close in. Like, for instance, I honestly have tried both approaches. I have gotten up before I've ministered and said, hey, everybody, I'm Deanna. And this is pretty much my informal resume. And I have these books out at the book table for sale. And I've written this book and I've written this book and I've accomplished this and I've accomplished this. I don't really sense the audience come in close. But when I share something like struggling with clinical depression, for instance, which is the case with me, when I share that, people come so close. I mean, it's just like they are hanging on my every word, and they are messaging me afterwards. They're trying to connect with me on social media. They're sending me emails. They're trying to connect with me in every way possible because that's resonating with them. Yeah. And so I find that sharing those vulnerable parts of myself just brings people super close, and they want to follow me all the more. They don't respect me less. They actually respect me more, even though I just shared something really vulnerable. Or I might even just share not just something like depression, which is a medical condition, but I might share something that was a big mistake that I made. I find that people really respond like crazy when I share a mistake I made, and I'm just honest about it. And then I share how I came back from that mistake. But when I just get up and share my accomplishments and my wins, it can kind of just tend to even push people away or make them feel like they don't measure up. Right. And so starting vulnerability goes a long way. And so a part of why I do it is, at the core of it, is to help people. And I think that's the guideline right there. That's the benchmark right there. I think with anything we do in leadership, we need to be able to ask ourselves, who benefits from this? Right. Who does this help? Now, I'm not going to lie. It feels good to sit down. I'm a writer. I love to write. That's my number one favorite thing to do. And when I write my thoughts and my feelings, it does feel good. I mean, it really feels good to just get it out. But that can't be the reason I'm doing it. That can't be the primary reason, at least the reason I'm publishing it, posting it, putting out there to the world. Before every post, I have to ask myself, and please don't think I ever haven't had a fail, because I have. But overall, I have to ask myself, who is going to benefit by me posting this? Is it just that I'm going to feel good that I got my feelings out, or that I shared this personal thing about myself? Or is this going to somehow draw people in, and not just draw them to me, but ultimately draw them to Jesus Christ, and let them know that there's hope and that they're not alone in whatever they're facing? If this post, if this book, if this whatever, if this article is going to bring them closer and to Jesus Christ and make them feel encouraged and empowered in some way, well, then that's the guideline right there. That's the benchmark for me, is why am I sharing it? What is the purpose here? And the ultimate goal is to bring them in closer relationship with Christ, or help them to grow in some way. And as leaders, when I'm specifically just ministering to leaders, my goal is to not only make them feel like there's hope for them, but also to empower them to go to the next step in their leadership journey. So I have to ask, is me sharing this going to help somebody to go to the next step in their leadership journey? Because at the heart of it, this isn't about me. This is to, God's given me, yes, it may be my story or stories, but ultimately God gives you a story to help other people.
That's really powerful. That mindset of leading for tomorrow, by asking myself, who's going to benefit from this? I think that's super important, especially like nowadays, everybody likes to share our thoughts and opinions and comments on social media. It's just rampant. I think that's a good filter, like as leaders, because we think that whatever we say or do today may not have a long-term effect for tomorrow. But I mean, people are watching, people are reading, especially if you're a visible leader or emerging leader, people look at you. I remember one time somebody was saying, I commented, and I've learned from my mistakes too here. So vulnerability, right? Speaking of, so I share my thoughts, and somebody private messaged me and say, hey, that's a little bit too much of the information, like I was sharing my thoughts on certain topic. And, people are watching your responses, and you're a leader. And I had to think, am I? Like, am I that kind of a leader where people will kind of give thoughts to what I say or do? But I think that's kind of like what it is. Like, your journey evolves, and you don't even know that God placed you in a place where what you say and do matter, and people are watching. A very good question, thought, Dr. Deanna. Thank you for saying that. Ask your question. Ask why. Like, who's going to benefit?
And I think it matters too. I think generations think differently about this. Like, I've had people of older generations say to me, well, you probably should have a little more discretion. I'm not saying this to criticize. This is just an honest assessment of what I see out there. I think sometimes what people consider to be discretion is a little bit more of pride. Other generations kind of kept things a little bit closer. They didn't really admit more readily that they had problems, or they had issues, or things to resolve behind the scenes. They weren't just as open with their life. And I think a part of that is just pride, that we don't want people to know that we've had failures, we've stumbled, we struggle in private. Sometimes people may want to cover that up. And I'm not saying that we don't need to have any discretion, but I'm saying sometimes, in my opinion, it can go over the line into pride, where we just don't want anybody to know that sometimes we've really blown it big time, or that we really have been at such a low
lesson to let people know that we blow things, like we mess up, and which is fine. In this generation, particularly, that vulnerability and authenticity only speaks volume, only makes you more human, relatable, approachable. So I think different generations speaks a different language. And so in this generation, leading for tomorrow, that strength of vulnerability and authenticity is just so important. I think vital. You lead so well, in your district is one of the healthiest when it comes to ministering for, with, and by women. I mean, you're doing it. You're talking about stronger leadership. You can speak on that a little bit later. But you, of course, had humble beginnings. Everybody, like, if they go to your conference and see thousands of women coming together, we're like, wow, she's done it. And you've done it for 8 years. Like, she got it together. But of course, you had humble beginnings that nobody talks about, nobody knows about, because what they see is right now, right? So as you are continuing to leading this type of ministry for women called to leadership, what was the catalyst for that? Maybe it was an event, maybe it was a leadership, maybe it was something. What was that?
Well, I realized that something needed to be done. And so when I came into office 8 years ago, I founded the Stronger Leadership Network for women in leadership. And so we began it and started off with a conference, the Stronger Leadership Conference. And I'm a person who believes it's perfectly fine to say that we need to be strong women, and just declare that, that we don't need to be embarrassed to say that we're strong. Yes, the Lord says in our weakness, He is strong, but the whole point is He gives us the power in our weakness to be strong. And so we call ourselves the Stronger Leadership Network. And we began with a conference, and then we started building out from there different things in the years to come, the Stronger Leadership podcast, and adding blogs and adding all of these things to be able to adding a cohort. We added a cohort that we've done now for the past 2 years for women in leadership. And so just adding all these different components. And of course, we've continued the conference every year too, as we've gone along. But the main thing is to not make this personality driven. And by that, I mean around my personality, but to amplify the voices of other women in leadership and to bring as many together as possible and to hear as many voices, and not just voices from just anywhere, but healthy leadership voices, strong women in leadership who can impart something to other female leaders who are both seasoned and up and coming from all generations, and to be able to minister a word of hope and life and empowerment, and to continue to move forward, and also keeping diversity in mind, of course, to get diverse voices of all backgrounds, races, of all generations, to come together and to amplify these voices and many voices across the district that others may not know or have ever heard from before, or had the pleasure to meet or run into at other places or conferences or at their sectional meetings or whatnot, but to bring those voices together and to have people encouraged by them. So that's been our journey. And the catalyst for that was getting it started 8 years ago and kicking off with that conference and continuing to grow from there.
That's good. Just doing it. That's the first step.
Just jumping in.
Yeah.
Jump in. Yes.
Yeah. And let God grow it. Well, how can women and other people follow what you're doing? Stronger and Leadership Network. Can you give us some information?
Absolutely. Through, you can just go to the website, pfwomen.com. Everything is under that umbrella, Stronger. You'll see the Stronger Leadership tab there with everything regarding stronger leadership, and also Stronger Leadership Network on Facebook. Anybody can join that and follow what we're doing and what we have to offer.
Thank you, Dr. Deanna, for leading for tomorrow. You're doing it so well, and keep on doing it. We love you and appreciate you.
Love you too. Thank you.
Well, that was super powerful. I mean, I know her personally, but you just really have to follow her steps of leadership. You're going to glean so much wisdom. And she is one of those ladies and women who's like, okay, I'm going to be speaking to your life. So just reach out and she will be a great resource to you. Now, my next guest is another incredible pioneering woman from Washington State. Give a shout out, everybody, Washington State. Now it's total opposite from Florida, right? Now we're going to fly all the way to Washington. And she is one of the up and coming Network of One minister leader. She's been in ministry for many decades, of course. This is not her first rodeo, but she is starting something new within her district. And I know some of you that are listening, it's kind of like, you know what? I don't even know where to begin. So let's kind of learn from her journey as well. Pastor Amanda, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for leading for tomorrow. Your leadership is so inspiring. And you're kind of doing something new and just pretty crazy, awesome things in your own district as well. You've been in ministry for many years and also served as a sectional leader before becoming the NWM Director. And so you're such a great example. In fact, when we did this previous interview, we kind of met on Zoom a little bit and talked about, and you were just so humble. And I remember clearly you saying, I don't know why God chose me for this. When I see you, I see equipped leader, but then you were just so humble. So how did you overcome your insecurities? And while it was important for you to step out of your comfort zone?
I'm not sure if growing up, we were youth pastors for 20 years, and I'm not sure if it was my culture where we were taught to be the helper of our husbands and stuff. And I always thought I was just a helper. And so I helped my husband in ministry for 20 years. And when my women's director came and asked me to be her, to assist her in the sectional level, I said yes. Then she became the district leader, and they asked me to be the sectional leader. And of course, I was very nervous, but I would say that I just said yes. I just said yes to the Lord because I knew I was called from a very young age, and I just said yes. And my yes has turned into being the director of Network of Women's Ministries.
That's really wonderful.
In our district.
You were saying that you were helping your husband's ministry for a while, not even realizing in hindsight, God was preparing for you, right? Preparing you for this leadership that you thought it would be beyond you. But I think just like Dr. Deanna was saying earlier, you said yes and you just did it, right? Whatever that was available, you did it, started with something at the local level. You said helping. And I remember you saying, like, I was just helping, but you weren't just helping. You were leading as you're helping and just
Yes.
doing that. And so that's really incredible. Your story, I want it to be an encouragement for people that are listening, because sometimes as women in ministry, we may feel like, oh, I'm just a helper. Like I'm just doing things that nobody knows, nobody hears, nobody sees. But then having you share that tells me that there's a purpose and meaning behind every little thing that you do. Isn't that true?
Yes, I've come to realize that, you know, I I love the story in the Bible where it talks about the bread and the fish, and they fed and the disciples fed so many with the little that they had. And so my prayer has always been to the Lord, this is what I have. This is what I have to bring to the table. Lord, use what I have. And I believe when I give it to him, when he returns to me back and tells me, take care of my flock, I believe that's where the miracle happens, and that's where God moves. God moves there when I first offer it to the Lord, and then He gives it back and says, "Take care of my flock." I believe that that's where the miracle begins and happens, and I am just a vessel that God uses. But I also had to, accept that I was called. I thought my calling was to help my husband and to help the leader, but I literally had to stop and say, "This is my calling. This is my calling. God, this is the time. This is your time to work for me." And although I was working for the Lord, helping, but I had to accept, hey, I do have a calling. It is my calling, and I accepted it, and I'm running with what I have in my hands.
Wow, that is powerful, because really, when God calls you to leadership, our only proper response is yes. The obedience is the only way. Now, both you and I have been pastor's wife, and that's an incredible ministry. And without that, pastors couldn't do their job, or pastor husbands. They couldn't.
Right.
They couldn't do that. And so I know that some people are just called to that ministry, that specific ministry of a helper to their spouses. I go for it. We need that. We need to do it. But when God gives you that specific call to leadership that is beyond helping whoever you're helping, then you've just got to say yes. I love it when you said you bring 100% of you, and whatever it is, you bring your best, like the loaves and fishes story, and God's going to turn into a blessing for other people. It's really not about you, and it's about discipling for tomorrow. So thank you for the encouragement, because some of us listening and engaging in this kind of conversation, we feel like, I don't have any to give. I don't have much. I don't have much to offer. But then God will take whatever you have and turn it into a blessing for many to come. And so,
the crazy thing is that I remember one year when we went to a women's conference, I saw the speaker come down, walking from the pulpit down, and I saw myself coming down that same place, and I'm like, no, that can't be me, because I don't know how to talk, I don't know how to express myself. And now when I see myself walking down the same pulpit and walk down that aisle, I all I did was say yes to the Lord, and I gave everything that I had to the Lord, and the best that I had. And
wow.
God has honored that in whatever way He's honored that. And if I was to give a word to any leaders, coming up, I'll just say yes to the Lord and give all you have with a clean heart, with a giving heart, and He rewards that.
Your story really reminds me of Moses, when God called Moses with the big divine task, and his response was, I can't, right? I can't talk. I'm not the right person, but God paved a way for him to still fulfill his mission, right? And
Right.
when you said, God, I can't really talk, I'm not a public speaker and all this, and yet God gave you that vision of you walking down from the same stage now that you're serving at Man, thank you for just being bold and vulnerable and just going for it. That's really important.
Thank you.
Now, you are one of many incredible female leaders in the Hispanic network and districts. And I know Hispanic districts is just doing it right. I don't know how you guys are doing it, what you're doing right, but you guys are championing women and you just make it so natural and organic. And me being married to a Hispanic husband and being aware of that culture, that mother's power and authority and the leadership, it's kind of common in homes, and maybe that translates into ministry as well. But okay, so you are, for many who value the side-by-side ministry, working with men and women together, when it comes to so organically to many Hispanic districts and churches, but people who aren't really sure how to do it, people that are like, okay, I get it theologically, now I got to put it into practice. Maybe somebody is watching, they have leadership platform, like they are the actual decision makers and they can do something about it, but they just don't know how to. What wisdom do you have for them?
Well, I believe that what worked for us was that, you know, we spoke to our superintendent, talked to him about our vision, and thank the Lord that he was open to everything we put on the table, and we got his approval and his blessing. And after that, we just connected with every leader that we could possibly, and got them on board. And I believe communication is a big key to making things grow. And thank the Lord that in our district, it's everyone's open to. It's a new district. We're new. We started 10 years ago, and everyone just wants to work for the Lord, and everybody's just in to make this grow.
Yeah, I think you are very strategic that you were going for the superintendent. You know, because a lot of times when we're talking about empowering women and leadership, there's a lot of grassroots movement, which is important. Like we need to have those. But then sometimes we just talk among ourselves, talking to the choir, and there's really no tangible change. So
Right.
I think it's very, very important. Of course, not anybody can just go up and talk to the superintendent. Of course, God put you in a place where you can have that kind of conversation. So that was your own leadership journey, but then you leveraged it. You leverage where you're at. And in fact, you can be creative. Whoever is listening, you may be in the position to be able to leverage your place of influence and to have that even conversation with the right people. I think that's the most critical point that we need to get from your experience is that don't just talk to anybody. Don't just talk to the choir. Everybody will disagree with you, but they have no power to make changes, no authority.
Yeah.
So thank you for that encouragement and doing that already, that you talked to the right person to have that conversation. Was there any, you said there was no pushback, they were very encouragement. Was there any like unexpected discouragement or mishaps that you encounter along the journey thus far?
The only thing that I've noticed is that because in our culture, you know, we're pastors' wives, you know, it's hard to get the women out of that mindset. But I've been every time I go up to the pulpit and I talk to them and I'm like, God, you know, we honor that position as well. We do honor helping our husbands, and that's great. But God has a calling for you. And you know, and you know, and I try to encourage that in every woman because I know how that feels. And God wants to use you. It's your time, you know, and there's a purpose for your life. I have seen after I do that, many women come up to me and say, "I want to start this program. I want to, you know, I love helping my husband, but I want to get licensed." And I'm like, "Well, that's great." And I make the resources available. You give them my phone number, give them connections, and it's worked very well. I believe our district is growing in getting women licensed. The Hispanic women is growing, and so.
Absolutely.
God
That
is
number is growing.
on us, yeah.
Absolutely. Nationwide is growing. In fact, you know, in the Hispanic culture, pastor's wife, even though you may not be a credentialed minister, they are called pastora. So the title of the pastor, just out of sheer respect of being a pastor's spouse, you get that title of a pastor. And Crystal talked about it a couple of times in her leadership minutes, which you will hear about another one at the end of this episode. She talks about the importance of title. like, you know, as women, it's like, oh, it's okay, I don't need the title, I'll just do my job. But then when we hear like a Hispanic woman being called pastoras, they live up to that calling, they live up to that title, because there is such reverence for that place of leadership. We're not saying, oh yeah, I'm the pastor, you know, follow me. It's like, that's a sacred place and a heavy responsibility. And I see that within the Hispanic districts where women are called pastora. Maybe you're not credentialed, but you live up to that calling. So thank you for doing that and doing it so well. How did you connect with the network of women ministers? People that are listening and they want to chime in, where should they start?
Well, the women's minister, the director of the women ministries, came and contacted me and said,
Oh,
I want you to be the director. Well, of course, I've worked alongside her since the beginning of our district.
yeah.
And she was a sectional leader, and she made me become a sectional leader. And then she's a district leader, and now I work alongside her. She says,
Really?
"You're not my assistant. You are my co-director. You know, you're next to me. You know, I love about our director is that she makes all of us feel like we're one, we're a team. It's
Yeah.
not about me, it's about all of us together."
You
And
know,
so,
I love that. Women championing women.
right.
Women celebrating women. Through my studies, I found that men aren't the only one who says no to women in ministry. Women also are the one. And so to see you guys championing, and that's so important as we're talking about leading for tomorrow. If you want to see both men and women called to ministry rise up, we've got to champion them, just like your district and sectional leader did that for you, Pastor Amanda. Now, as we're wrapping up our conversation, I would love for you to, if possible, pray in Spanish for all the women that are called to ministry. I think it's so beautiful when we can offer prayer in different tongues. And so would you be willing to do that?
I would love to do that.
Awesome. Let's pray.
Oh Señor y buen Padre Jesucristo, poder del Espíritu Santo, en este momento, Señor, elevo a tu presencia, Padre Celestial, a cada, Señor, dama, cada mujer, Señor, dispuesta de entregar su vida a ti, Señor, cada mujer en ministerio, Señor, cada pastora, Señor, cada directora de mujeres, Padre Celestial. Yo pido, Señor, que tú pongas a cada mujer en tus manos, Padre Celestial. Que tú unges, Padre, cada ministerio, Señor, que les has dado a cada mujer, Padre Celestial. Señor, bendiga sus vidas, bendiga sus familias, Señor. Llénalas con la llenura de tu Espíritu, Señor. Señor, dales nueva visión, Padre, en el nombre de Jesús. Dale, Señor, nuevas ideas, Señor, para lidiar las hermanas de este ministerio, Señor. Alabamos, glorificamos tu nombre, Señor. Te pido esto en el nombre de Jesús. Pido una llenura de tu Espíritu, Señor. Unge cada mujer, Señor, cada ministra, Señor, cada líder, Señor, cada directora, Padre. En el nombre de Jesús te pido esto, Señor. Gracias, Padre Celestial. Amén.
Amen. Gloria a Dios. I love it. Thank you so much. We love you and appreciate you. We'll see you around.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless. Two incredible women leading in different contexts in different seasons, and yet they're saying yes fully to God for tomorrow. Well, wherever you're leading, just remember God is using you to disciple the next generations of ministers. Hey, you may not feel like you're making a big impact right now, but remember, God is doing something. He is always at work. Now, here is a good part and sad part. Good part is, in a little bit, you're going to hear Crystal coming up, sharing this leadership minute with you, and that will be the last of it for this season, and that is a sad part. Our next episode, the next month, you're going to see all of our leadership coming together and sharing some reflective thoughts as we are concluding this journey. I might have some news to share with you. I can't tell you just now, so you're going to have to wait till the next season. But for now, here is Crystal with the Leadership Minute, and we'll be right back next month. We love you guys. God bless.
Hello, family, on our Learn Together journey with the network of women ministers. Today, I've been somewhat reflective of my seasons in ministry. We talk about seasons a lot, but I think sometimes as we start out in ministry, the Lord often gives us just a handful of people. And as I work with Chi Alpha, we have small groups. And as you start as a student leader, you're given like 8 girls or 8 guys or 8 girls and guys, and you have oversight over those folks, and you love them and you pastor them and you mentor them and you disciple them, and you kind of keep your eyes on these 8. And then you go into your next season of ministry and you're like, oh, we're going to have you oversee maybe these 5 groups. And so you have to lift your eyes a little higher to a larger group. And then I feel like sometimes seasons of ministry is just lifting our eyes higher and higher to see, oh, wow, God's calling me to reach this city. Wow, God's calling me, giving me nations. And so it's like this eye lifting process as we grow as ministers and as leaders. But I do think the Lord is telling us that something in this season, that no matter where our eyes are, some of us are ministering to our group of 6, some of us have oversight of larger activities and our eyes are in different places. I think no matter where our eyes are in our leadership journey, we are in a season that God is asking us to lift our eyes up and see the harvest, and move from, wherever you are in this journey, and lift it as high as you can and see the harvest. Because as we are harvest focused, there is limitless potential. Sometimes when our eyes are here, we're like, oh God, help me with these 8 women. I hope I can do it. Or help me with this, and I hope I can do it. But when we look up here, it's like, oh my goodness, the harvest is plentiful and the labors are few. And I'm exactly what this harvest field needs, no matter what season I'm in. So just a reminder today, keep your eyes where God has you in your leadership journey, but every once in a while, lift your eyes up, check out the harvest, and let God fill you with his hope, with his heart for the nations, with his heart for the harvest. And then I believe God will give you that. Then you'll be working out of that place of fullness. May God bless you today. May he cause you to be fruitful no matter where your eyes are. And let's go fulfill God's call in our life together.